This is Trophy Dark, a warm and pleasant hum, part 2. And we begin with ring 3. Last time I described this moose that walked into your campsite unbothered by your presence, and everyone had a story about the moose, some folk tale or mythological tale about this moose. And this moose was very, very big. It was like 8 feet tall at the shoulder, which means at the tip of its antlers, it was probably like closer to 12 feet tall, right? Just huge. And the antlers were coated in honey and speckled with bees. And I noted it really briefly. I don't know if anybody caught it, but that its hoof prints are easy to trace in reverse. Like it came from deeper in the forest, right? Apparently from somewhere where there are bees. And you can see its hoof prints because they have like a kind of golden rind on them that catch the light. And that'll be important the next morning. The next morning, after you're all roused and ready to go, you will still see those hoof prints. But you'll notice that gold layer is actually like a powdered layer of chitin, the remains of many generations of bees that the moose must have been stomping around in. That and the fact that its antlers were covered in honey and bees, dead and alive, is a pretty good indication that you're on the right path, and indeed that following the moose's hoof prints in reverse might lead you deeper into the sixth form heart, or to the sixth form heart.
Just a real quick question. Did the bees that were on the moose, were they about the same size as the bee that I have, or?
So there were different sizes. Most of them were just normal sized bees, but there might have been a couple of the bigger ones too.
Okay.
Alina, as you're getting your things ready in the morning, you notice that your waxed canvas sack that perhaps you intended to put the royal jelly in has a very clean cut in it. It will not hold any fluid now, royal jelly or otherwise. Mm-hmm. Who do you think among the group would engage in sabotage like this, and why?
Oh, in Alina's mind, it has to be Nil. If he is not above poisoning a horse, then cutting up a sack is really, quite a step below that. So I think she's like, okay, I don't know what I did, but Nil is no longer on our side. But I think, like she did with the horse, for now, she will keep it to herself until she has either more information or more pressing need to tell this about her suspicions.
It is something of a problem in the short term, because in order to safely transport the royal jelly, we'll need a specially prepared sack like this. And so yours having a hole is a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
That also leads to a question that I asked you all to ponder last time. Were you going into the Humming Woods to seek power or to seek a cure, a remedy? And some of you spoke on it. I don't know if everyone did, but it's something I want you to continue to think about. The power, of course, is if you can actually get your hands on the mother of millions. This would be a treacherous act for the forest, for any bees that are out there, maybe even for some of your companions. But having the mother of millions in your control is would be really something, to be able to command what she commands, or to sell her to someone who can take advantage in that way. And of course, there's the royal jelly as well. This restorative jelly is thought to have magnificent healing properties. So think on that. Continue to think on it, in particular as it relates to your drive. And I think we'll kind of just press forward, going in the general direction of the hoof prints, the reverse hoof prints of the moose. You had been in kind of like a wide open, kind of overgrown floodplain, right? But now you're actually getting to be into a tighter knot of trees again. And here the trees are becoming more and more crowded. And as you press deeper into the woods, that buzzing becomes louder and more insistent. Even if you didn't have the hoof tracks to follow, that buzzing would get you going in the right direction, more or less, because it is so pronounced. And bee sightings are becoming more frequent. There are the smaller scouting varieties, kind of like Nil's friend. But there are also larger ones. And in particular, you start to notice that there are patrols of very large wingless bees. They're grounded bees, as big as hounds. And they have patrols. They have a pattern that they follow. As long as you're keeping a fairly wide arc away from the heart of the woods, the patrols won't bother you. But if you press deeper as you try to get closer, you will have to find a way around the patrols or otherwise negotiate or navigate that. Valen had acquired a map of these patrols that was in the ditch, but I don't know if you ended up keeping the map. Did you end up getting rid of it? What happened?
I think that when we had our little stab fest, I think that the apiarist took off with everything.
It
if I
took all
remember.
that stuff. So you are sans map at this point. And so that's sort of where we find ourselves. As you are getting deeper in as well, you're starting to have this fine sheen of golden pollen all over your bodies and clothing. It's just possible to avoid. It just floats on the air and sticks to you. And it gives everyone this almost like iridescent look. Ifori, at one point, a bee about the size of like a little dog flies and just lands right on you. Just pop. No concern whatsoever for who you are or what you are. It lands gently, and its little mandibles are gathering up the fine bits of pollen on your body. It's just doing its work. How are you reacting right now?
I think she's gotten very stiff, but keeping in mind that they kind of need to be on amicable terms with the bees. I think what she's doing is she's trying to keep that shoulder relatively still, but she's using her hand to gather up the pollen on the rest and kind of try to make this happen faster.
Oh, interesting. I like that. Make a ruin roll. Let's see if how this affects you. So you got a 4 and your current ruin is 3. So your ruin is going up, which means in this context, you are becoming more one with the Hummingwoods, right? How are you feeling right now as you're engaging in this? I don't need a risk roll or anything. You can just do it, but I'm curious how you're feeling.
I think at first it's just vaguely confusing and alarming because bees. But as there's no real adverse reaction, I think she's something in her feels like she's being accepted here in a way that, well, is kind of reminiscent to what it used to be like to be part of a cult and where she's trying to be again.
How very interesting. Phelan, you have a demonstrated ability to see things that maybe others can't see yet, or are, maybe not there. How has Ifori changed in appearance as Ifori sort of like takes on this strange responsibility?
I think that to some degree, Valen is starting to see Ifori as maybe kind of like a man-at-arms to the Morning Knight, or like a squire, perhaps, right? Ifori has always been sort of singing the praises of Alina to others, for their own nefarious purposes, but that's not necessarily clear to Valen, right? So I think that he is seeing this as sort of just like a normal evolution of her responsibilities. Like she's taming the wild, she's maintaining the hounds, she's she's paving the way for the Morning Knight's travels.
Very good. I do owe you a condition, Ifori. And it's fairly minor, but I'm going to say that you have an overwhelming craving for sugar. You need sugar. You want sugar. How do you express that right now?
I think she begins to look around because this is the Hummingwoods. This is where bees reside. There must be honey somewhere, just normal honey.
Yeah, I think we'll play with that. As soon as the bee is done doing its work, you actually do see like a fresh comb hanging from a tree limb or a small, hive or whatever. And you can see the amber droplets coming off it. There's almost certainly fresh honey in it. What do you do?
I think she turns to Nil and she says, as an apiarist, you would know the best way to harvest honey, would you not?
I'm no apiarist. I just I just work with the bees. I don't control them. I don't manipulate them. But I can advise you that if you do want to approach it, do so quickly but carefully. Bees do have stingers and all.
I see.
One
And
of your little gang says, no, you must not touch any of the honeycomb. You have to wait until you've been given permission from the bees themselves.
I believe permission is something to be requested. And contrary to all the advice she's been given, I think she slowly approaches the honeycomb.
Alina, you can see as Ifori approaches this hive hanging from the tree, you can see a number of bees, just regular sized ones, have started to land and indeed create almost like a sheath around the tree that the hive is hanging from. It's a reaction to Ifori getting close. Alina, what do you do?
I think I will start to look around and see if I can maybe find some kind of plants or something that I know bees like don't like the smell of, or you know, like maybe it's similar to a predator, their smell or something. Because you know, Ifori's been given a lot of advice and is ignoring all of it, so there's no reason to believe she's gonna listen to me. But I also don't want her to get eaten by bees. So I think she's just like the only option that I have is just make the bees go away. So Ifori can do her thing.
I like that as a risk roll. Everyone else, Kavya, Daniel, Jack, and myself, we can say how we think this could go wrong.
I think go wrong for Alina by there's something in the concoction that she doesn't get quite right, and she accidentally poisons herself.
I think that like this just draws like it could draw really negative attention from the bees, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking too. Just like sort of the bees just get really agitated.
Like they might be gone in the short term, but they'll remember like
Yeah.
this, right? Yeah. Any other ideas, Kavya? So let's talk about dice. You have your first light die, no problem. And the second light die will be if you accept a devil's bargain from one of us. I will make my bargain a variation of my fail condition or my fail state, which is there is one particular sort of like hunter bee or scout bee that is like set on you, Alina, to keep an eye on you.
Mhm.
I think my devil's bargain would be the fanboys begin to get a little agitated themselves seeing what's going on here.
Mine is the opposite of that. They become even more enthralled by Alina to the point of obsession.
If I could second Jack's, I would. That's a good one.
Yeah, you got 3 offers. What do you think, Jazzy?
I do like the idea of playing with the fanboys and them somehow seeing this as a sign of divinity or whatever.
Right, yeah. Okay, good.
I don't know how they work, but yeah. Okay, I'll accept that one.
2 light dice, and I'm going to make you take a dark die also because this could get dangerous pretty quick.
It sure could. All
6 light.
right.
6, 5, and 5. Full success. Go ahead and describe how you make the honey safe for Ifori to take.
Yeah, I think it's very subtle. And it also doesn't seem to necessarily harm the bees. It's almost like I'm taking these different herbs from the ground, and I think just very lightly I'll light some kind of fire to just like waft the smoke and the smell of it towards the bees. And it's almost like this effect of them just separating for a moment. But it seems very natural. They're not acting like the bees are not acting like they're hurt or upset. It's more like almost a respectful distance rather than a fear of something. As if whatever Alina did or the way that she made that concoction was just perfectly right to get that little bit of respect from the forest.
One of the beekeepers says, I think they're saying it reverently and quietly, but it's very audible. They say, another part of the prophecy. And she will know how to tame them. She will know how to tame the hive. And the other beekeepers like nod, like, yes, yes. Ifori, what do you do once you have access to the honey?
I think I just take as much of it as I can.
You just start eating it right then and there.
No, I think she takes it and she goes back to the group, takes a very small amount and offers it to Alina for like helping, and then keeps the rest to herself and starts consuming it.
Valen, what are you doing meanwhile?
I think Valen is going to sort of sidle up to Nil, watching all of this happen, and just going to kind of lean over to Nil and say, Nil, my friend, when you look at him, and here Valen will point to Alina, what do you see?
Him?
Yes.
And he'll look over at Lena, confused. Maybe he missed a memo or something, but he'll turn back to Valen and say, I'm sorry, I don't quite understand the question.
Interesting. Thank you. And he'll just stand there and continue to watch.
You press deeper into the woods, and it becomes clear very quickly that you are not just walking within bee territory, you are walking through bee civilization. You start to see hives and structures that are like hives in various sizes, hanging or freestanding. You see bees of various sizes and responsibilities, and even coloring, crawling here and there, roaming about. Most are friendly and ignore you, or they're indifferent, I think is probably the better word. They frequently just land on you and poke around, gather some pollen maybe. Sometimes they just get like right up in your face with their eyes, their multi-segmented or faceted eyes kind of staring into yours. Sometimes you can feel just like a group of them landing, and there's like a tickle on your flesh as they sort of undulate in a little wave across your skin. I would like for everyone to make the ruin roll right now. So call out what you got and whether your ruin is going up.
That's a 3 for me, and it's not going up.
Okay.
That is a 6 for me, and it is going up.
Oh,
It's a 6 for me as well, and it's going up.
oh, interesting.
4 for me, and not it's tied, then it doesn't go up.
It doesn't go
right?
up if it's tied now.
Okay.
So we have 2 5s now, though. Nil, you're back at 5, and Valen, you are now entitled to do the reduction roll. And I think from both of you whose ruin went up, I want to know how you're responding to being within this bee culture, like this place where insects have no fear of you, where you are truly I wouldn't say guest, but you are the outsider, right? You are the person who does not belong. And yet they're almost entirely indifferent. They have like no fear or care or concern about what you're doing, most of them anyway. There are the patrols, which we'll get to them later, but how are you feeling? And more importantly, how are you being drawn more in?
For Nil, there's a comfort in this. Obviously, having been so close to the bees of Amberette, he feels almost at home here. The humming, the vibrations, it's almost like a sound bath. And so like when he's walking, he's walking with a bit of a glide, with a bit of a daze look at his face. And but I think the way that the ruin comes in is that it becomes almost too relaxing. He almost lets his guard down. And where once he was always kind of on edge and poised to strike out if he needed to, I think now his defenses are a bit more down.
think Valen is kind of the opposite right now. I think even though these bees have not shown any like animosity towards him, just their presence and um, their number makes him feel like he is constantly being observed, like he is constantly one step away from making a mistake that will turn them all against him, right? And that will cause them to deploy their stingers. So I think he's feeling very paranoid.
Very interesting. Nil, do you offer up your body to any of the bees?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think with his little bee friend in tow, he'll say, I know that this is that you have a home, but if you or any of your brethren need a place to stay as we go back to the hive, please, by all means.
I think your bee friend will acknowledge this, and indeed a number of smaller bees will occasionally land on you and crawl inside you. How does that make you feel?
His eyes are starting to flutter in the back of his head. It's a recollection of a time that he felt connected to them. And I think there's a genuine sense of comfort in this. He's been empty for so long that having something back inside of him makes him feel more whole.
Alina, at a certain point, you will notice that Nil has an incredible amount of smaller bees buzzing around his head. And indeed, they're starting to take the shape of like a seething crown in motion, a humming halo. These bees even start to give off like a warm amber glow. Alina, what do you suppose this strange coronation could mean? Is it some kind of anointment? Has Nil been chosen by the bees?
Yeah, that could be it. I think Alina sees it more like becoming the way a plant will change, will bloom. Nil is also becoming something, but he is becoming something of this forest. And that means that he won't leave, which means that to her, he's also probably not a threat because what she really cares for is outside of this forest, fighting.
As the sun gets lower in the sky, Nil's buzzing amber crown becomes much more visible. Ifori and Valen. Ifori, the beekeepers don't know what to make of this. They have no prophecies that speak to an anointed one who's anointed thusly by the bees. And so they're just like chattering with themselves, like trying to figure out what it means. Ifori, what do you think it means?
I think it reflects an understanding between the bees and Nil. Nil has very much repeatedly described how he wants to simply be a sort of resting place for the bees, doesn't seek to truly interact with them from a place of power. So I think she thinks this crown is them reflecting that. So the royalty in the royalty indicated by the shape of it is mildly worrisome.
Balin, I'm curious how you're responding to this, because it almost indicates that Nil has a holiness to him that maybe was not previously known. Maybe there's more to Nil than you thought, but I'm curious, what do you think?
I think that Valen thinks that Nil has somehow led these bees astray. Clearly, the crown is on the wrong head. Right. And I think that this needs to be rectified.
Oh, interesting. What did you have in mind?
I think that Valen is going to start collecting like the pollen and so forth that is, that has been sort of like gathering on us. And I think that the next time they rest, I think Valen is going to surreptitiously put a bunch of it near Alina's head in an effort to attract the bees to, the rightful royalty, the correct person.
I'll give you a reduction roll on that eventually. But I need to check in with Nil. Nil, you are aware of this bee crown. What are you thinking it means?
It's divine. It's it feels like I'm being anointed by them. Which is weird because I feel like he feels like he's a drone. He's not obviously not, a queen. He's not a member of royalty to them. I think he wants to be a drone for them. So I think he's humbled by this. And
do you start to do anything like performative related to your new role with the group, or what does this look like?
I think I think as he's walking, he's gathering pollen off of himself and continuing to kind of like scoop it up onto his neck and onto his head to try and like keep them entertained. And I think he just kind of keeps offering praises to them, but they're in the sound of like hums. He's trying to like mimic the humming that he hears from the other bees.
I would like for Valen, Ifori, and Alina to make Valen, you don't have to because you're about to do a reduction roll, but I would like for Alina and Ifori to make ruin rolls upon seeing this transfiguration taking place with Nil.
That was
It's,
a 4 for me. Does not go up.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
same for me. Also a 4. I think at this point, Alina almost expects it from Nil. It's strange, sure, but it's a becoming. It's just a exaggeration of what was already happening to her, I think.
I think you do take a moment to sort of rest, Valen, and you can try your your attempt to draw the halo away from Nil. Let's have the roll first to see if Nil notices. Go ahead and roll reduction. Okay, so you got a 2. So Nil is not aware of what you're trying to do. I don't think it's going to work, but I'm just curious, like what does this look like?
Yeah, so I imagine them like, I don't know, catching a breath around a tree or something like that, right? Just sort of sitting down, relaxing. And I think that Valen has been gathering this pollen in like a small pouch. And I think that he'll like reach up and take the crown that he made for Alina earlier, will take it off of her head and just pretend that like he's freshening it up, right? He's adding some new flowers to it. He's cleaning up places where it may have come undone a little. And as he is doing so, he is just absolutely smearing the inside of this thing with pollen. And then he will gently put it back on her head and just look very satisfied with himself.
Alina, what are you thinking about all this?
Yeah, I don't think she likes it a lot. But there is that moment of her, like it's put on her head and it's gooey and it's disgusting, but as she almost like instinctively wants to reach up, she looks at Valen and she realizes that she needs help. She needs protection. Or maybe just a sacrifice down the line. And I think her hand goes down and she just says, "Thank you. It's much better now."
He is just smiling beatifically down.
Nighttime eventually arrives again. And you are under a properly starlit sky now. And you've probably almost at this point maybe even gotten accustomed to the presence of the bees, right? They're not outwardly hostile. They're not trying to hurt you. They're as long as you kind of mind your own business generally, they're okay with you proceeding through the humming woods. You also, it's possible you just haven't run into the really mean ones as well. But in any case, you're camping down for the night. And you will probably never, ever have a camping experience like this again, because the woods reverberate with a constant hum, a constant buzz. Sometimes you can make yourself ignore it or get used to it. But other times, maybe you start to pick out hidden harmonies in the buzzing, echoes of lullabies from your childhood. Let's talk about lullabies. What were the songs about that your mothers and fathers used to sing to you to lull you to sleep? Was it about the rocking of babies, the sweetness of honey, the warmth of the hearth, something else? And how will you take those memories with you to help you not just sleep for the night, but also to get through the rest of this journey successfully? Think on it for a moment. Whoever wants to speak first, go ahead.
Nil is near the horse, stroking its mane, but in a way that is mechanical. It's not, he's performatively trying to be comforting, but it's more just like mechanical, trying to kind of keep himself in motion because he's staying up all night. He's not going to sleep. He has to stay up for the bees. And I think he's humming to the horse that lullaby that his mother used to sing to him back in the charcoal district. The one about a new place, a different place, a place of beauty, the rose gardens, a place that kings and queens and even gods would step into, a place that all men and women and everyone else would want to go to retire or to even die and be laid to rest in the rose gardens. But I think, he's humming this lullaby in a way that's trying to ape sort of like the humming of the bees and hoping to sort of, he wants to become like a living chorus for them in this moment.
Very interesting. Thank you.
I think if Ori has laid her roll down and she's lying down and she doesn't fall asleep quite yet, but the humming is reminding her of this lullaby that was sung every night without fail, no matter what other lullabies were sung. And it spoke of the peace and safety of being part of a harmonious community, how stepping outside of that is what would truly put you in danger, how your gods would punish you for it. And I think as she's as it reaches the end of that particular melody, she begins humming along almost joyously, because it reminds her that she is building a better cult. She is going to succeed where her parents and their forefathers failed.
Nice.
I think for Alina, it's almost the opposite of that. I think the message. I think she is reminded of a song that was only ever sung like a secret in whispered tones when you felt safest or when it was darkest in the night and you felt like even the most horrific things couldn't see you right now. And it's a song about a local hero who Alina was named after, Alina the Defiant, who stood up against the great Lord Hafir, and who was just a simple working girl, just a simple farm girl who wanted nothing but the land and the love of her family. And when that was taken, when that was no longer a possibility under this tyrannic rule, she stood up, and with nothing but the passion of her heart and the kindness in her song and her words, she freed this town. It's unclear if it's ever really happened or if it's something that the peasants just tell themselves because they really wish to believe that it can be true. But that is the song that has been whispered to Alina from the very first day she was born.
I think Valen's parents were rat catchers in the city, and the songs of his childhood were about the duplicity and subterfuge and cunning and tenacity of vermin. And as these verses are coming sort of unbidden to his mind, he is looking at each of his companions, Nil and Ephori, and then even at some point looks to Alina, who he sees as the morning night, now further rotted. And a particular verse comes to mind of always being wary of what you see before you and how it is not necessarily real.
Valen, Euphoria, and Alina, since the three of you are actually sleeping, or going to sleep, presuming to sleep, you will be laying down and perhaps having the best view of the constellations again. This time they're real. I would like for each of you to name the constellation that you're focusing on, the one that will guide you home once you are successful here.
I think I'll just make one up because I'm not that good with stars.
Oh yeah, this is like this is like your own version of the constellations.
I think I am looking at a constellation that is called the Sunflower, because it's like almost like pointing like a little tilted. And on some days you can still see it when the sun goes down and it seems to almost line up. So it's called the Sunflower because of its relation to the sun. And I remember this from the days of hard work, from the days when it got really, really tough, from the fields of sunflowers in my hometown that we believe have like a almost a mythical connection between the two. And I believe that when all this is done, I will look up at it once more and be Alina the Defiant.
Nice, thank you.
I think for Ifori, it's one she's made up, and it takes pieces of these pre-existing constellations that are near each other, and if she kind of tilts her head a little, it forms the symbol of Darawan. She calls it a symphony of voices in her head, and it reminds her why she's here, what she's doing, what it's all for.
I think Valen looks up and sees a constellation that he was taught is called the Night Spider, which spreads its legs across the sky and has a single silken thread coming from it that always points towards your quarry. And he can see that it is pointed deeper into this forest, and he knows that he's on the right track.
Good. Nil, you're staying up. Being awake at night, possibly the only person awake, is a terrific opportunity for treachery if you were going to try to reduce your ruin.
Oh, yes.
And I'll tee something up for you. One of those patrols is coming by. One of the large grounded bees has managed to make it over to this little patch in the woods. You can see it at some distance. I think one of the apiarists has, you actually notice it first because one of the apiarists is awake and is actually like sort of genuflecting before this bee so as not to draw unwanted attention from it. It's giving it a big berth, a big wide arc of room. But you, of course, are wearing a crown of bees right now. You have a halo. What do you do?
I think to start, when he's humming that lullaby, he's remembering that the bee that he first befriended here had told him a secret, had told him something about the hive. And I think that thing was that the humming woods wasn't always the queen's. She conquered it, and that she's in fact a conqueror, and that she's not tired of the woods, but she knows that her empire has to expand. One of those places would most likely be Amberette. And so I think that motivates him to really push ahead. And I think he's watching and letting the apiarist be a distraction. But I think the treachery that he wants to do is he would like to try and cut open the pouch of honey that Ifori stole from the bees. And as they're patrolling, his hope is that they smell them and know that she is not one of them, or that she's there with ill intent.
I like it. Go ahead and roll reduction. Let's see if anyone notices. You got a 4, so you get to do this completely in the clear. And as we see Nil sneakily cutting open the pouch of honey and letting it drizzle everywhere, evidence of Ifori taking what does not belong to her from the humming woods. So passes ring 3. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back and do ring 4. Ring 4. Valen, Alina, and Nil. You didn't really sleep, but Valen and Alina and Nil, you all wake up and beekeepers are there, but Euphoria is not. Let's just have that scene.
I think Alina turns to Nil and just says, "What have you done?"
Nil has been standing by the horse all night, and I think that breaks him out of his trance. And he just slowly turns his head back towards Alina and says, "I'm sorry, what?"
What have you done to her?
And he looks over at the space where Afori should have been laying down. Just sees like a little puddle of honey that's trailed off. And he looks back up at Alina and says, "Well, I don't know. I've been with the horse all night. The horse can tell you." And when it grows, he just smiles.
I turn to the apiarists. Well,
Perhaps she is just she's just taking the air, or I'm sure she'll return momentarily.
well, we have no time to wait.
I think during this time, I think Valen has actually started just following the trail of honey.
Ifori, you wake up to find yourself embedded in wax, hanging from a tall tree, or you're on the trunk, like pressed into the trunk about halfway up this tall tree. And there are a number of the patrol drones crawling about. You can tell, even with your not having access to your hands, you can tell that your face and body has been smeared with honey. And indeed, one of the patrol bees raises up the torn sac on its mandible, an accusation of what you've done. What do you do, Ifori?
There's this brief moment of complete and utter rage at whoever did this, because obviously this was someone cut that open. Before she kind of snaps back into the present, she says, "It was not without permission, if that's why I'm here."
They don't seem incredibly interested in giving you a fair trial here. And a couple of them, they don't fly, but they're very good climbers. They begin climbing up the tree where you're at. Another one, the one with the ripped sack hanging from its mandibles, also climbs up the tree. And they begin to press atop you, pushing you deeper into the wax, their mandibles snapping close to your face. And then they bare their stingers.
I have to ask, do bees count as vermin
Maybe. Why do you ask?
for the sake of the ritual?
Which one is
Swarm
that?
trade favors with a colony of vermin.
Oh, I'll take it if you want to roll it. Yeah. I think that would be great. Let's talk about a risk roll here. What could go wrong, group?
They could certainly somehow sense that Ifori sees them as vermin through the casting of this ritual.
I think you just get stung to death. Summary execution by the bees.
I think they're offended by the fact that you think that the vermin, so you just get stung to death.
I think rather than getting stung to death, you might become part of the forest, and they will sort of, like wax you up further until you have become sort of this wax tree human hybrid in the forest, forever trapped but still alive.
Those are all great ideas. Let's go to Dice. Do you have a skill that will help you out here?
I've got ritual, surrender, and deception.
Okay,
One
I'll
of
take.
those has to help.
Yeah, I think that between them you should get your light die. And Devil's Bargains. Everybody can make an offer here. I think my Devil's Bargain is the bees are actually it turns out these bees, or at least one of them, maybe all of them, are actually insurrectionists against the Mother of Millions.
Yeah, mine,
Uh,
I guess is, go on.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say mine's, I guess, a bit of a sort of play on that. That there's a transformative property in the stinger, so the sting is not meant to kill, but it's meant to change. And because if they're insurrectionists, maybe it's to change you into a new queen.
Mine is sort of like that, I suppose. I think playing on you getting that feeling of belonging once again, you will realize that waxed up here and amongst these bees, you want to become part of this forest no matter what.
I think mine is probably much simpler, and it is that no matter what, you can't tell how much of you is under this wax, but it is not all of you.
These are all pretty good. What do you think, Kavya?
I have to second that they're all pretty good. But I think I'm gonna go with Jack's of the sting is not meant to kill, it's meant to transform.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, okay. You've got 2 light, 1 dark for the ritual, so go ahead and roll. 5 light.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll tell you the complication and you can decide. So you're going to succeed. You're going to strike your bargain. What is your bargain? What's the basic contours of the bargain here?
I am worthless here. However, I do know of an individual that would make a lovely nest.
Oh, good. I see. So you want to like let them use their transformative venom on one of your companions or point them in that direction.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that the complication is they will give you a stinger with the venom and you have to do the envenoming.
I think I would relish that.
Very good. So now we have to figure out how this communication happens. I guess just the nature of the magic might allow you to communicate with them. What does that look like? How does the ritual look? Especially because your hands and stuff are not free.
I think she think at the back of her neck there's this tattoo that she had to get someone else to do that she can't see back there, but it allows her to channel power for the ritual. So I think what she does is she kind of pushes her neck back and tries to like scrape it open a little on the wood so that there's some blood flowing there, and then uses that to channel the magic. Nice.
We'll come back to this scene in a moment. Valen, your tracking skills are horrible. You end up tracking nowhere near where Euphoria is, and indeed, you are separated from the group And you find yourself at a tree. And the profile of the tree is warped by the presence of hexagon-shaped wax tiling. It's not a hive, really, but it's some sort of separate standalone structure, where the trunk of this strange hexagon wax tree, where the trunk reaches the ground, you see a very miserable human figure clinging to life, embedded in the wax, immobile. They're wearing one of the mesh masks, one of the beekeeper masks. And that's pretty much all you can see, just a little bit of their upper torso and their mesh mask face. The rest of them is kind of embedded in these wax tiles. And you can just hear them kind of what do you do? First of all, make a ruin roll, and then tell me, what do you do? You got a 3. You're keeping it together. Yeah, so how do you react to this?
Are there any like visible larger bees or anything around, like anything that presents as a danger particularly? No. Okay. Yeah, I think Valen will sort of approach and kneel down in front of this person and reach out and gently take off their mask.
You take off the mask and you see that their face is grotesquely swollen. One of the eyes is not even visible because the flesh is puffed up so much. They have just a little snarl of a mouth that they can open. The rest of it is so swollen tight. And there's, from this sort of like puffy purple flesh, there's just a sort of like sweet smelling ooze coming out of it. And this poor person says, "Please, water. I need water."
Valen will kind of like examine his face sort of quietly for a moment and say, "What do you have to trade for it?"
I know things. I made it to the sixth form heart. I am an exile.
Indeed, but it looks as though you weren't welcome.
Do not go there. There is only madness and death there. Bees, they're not like the others. They've changed. They seek only war and conquest. They have a desire. Their desire for the nectar of flowers has been replaced by the desire for bloodshed. At this point, you will start to hear buzzing coming from inside his chest cavity. Not entirely unlike what Nil experiences, though this seems a little less consensual on his part. Indeed, a bit of the cloth of what's left of his shirt falls away, and you can see that beneath the cloth, his ribs shelter a comb of golden hexagons, where tiny writhing grubs feed on honey and meet a living nursery set inside the tree. Please make another ruin roll. Five. You go back up to 5.
I do.
How do you feel upon seeing this?
I mean, horrified, right? It's horrific. But also somehow drawn to this flourishing of life in this dying creature. And strangely protective, perhaps, of these little grubs that will someday grow into bees.
Meanwhile, back at camp, Alina and Nil, setting aside the beekeepers, of course, who are always off muttering to themselves, the two of you are left together, alone, here with your accusations and your
Yeah.
opinions.
I think Alina goes to the apiarists, and quietly she speaks and she says, "You have sworn yourself to the forest and the mother of millions, to the prophet who will cure her. And yet you've allowed this false prophet, his heresy, this crown of bees mocking our mother, to walk here. I shall cure her. I shall do what must be done. But we cannot go in with such blasphemy." And I'm trying to strike a deal here.
I know. Yeah, it's good. What do you hope they'll do?
I think Alina is hoping that they will take care of Nil for her.
Oh,
And
I see.
then she, because
Oh.
there's nobody here. And then she, if Valen or Ifori return, she can play a wounded gazelle again. That's like, oh, this
Right,
horrible
yeah,
thing
yeah.
happened. And I was just innocent.
I like it as a risk roll. I think that I'll be the only one who speaks about what could go wrong. I think that what could go wrong is they already have a brand new interpretation of their little ad hoc theology that centers around Nil and you. And so that's sort of how this could go, I think. You do have deals as a skill, weirdly, because of your background. And so I'll give you that first light die. Since you're implicated, Nil, or Jack, since your character's implicated, I'll let you be the devil's bargainer.
Yeah, I think no matter what, I think no matter what, you'll get them on your side. But I think they're hesitant to completely do away with Nil because of his attachment to the bees. So I think that, and you can interpret this however you want, but I think they'll want to keep him on as long as possible so that they can incorporate him into the ritual some way.
I'll
I see. So
absolutely take that.
yeah, okay, interesting. All right, good. You've got 2 light dice. I don't need a dark die. You can just roll 2 light for now. That is a fail.
I'll add a dark die.
You can add a
and
dark die.
re-roll it.
Yeah. So 2 light, 1 dark.
So 2 light, 1 dark.
Yeah, you just reroll it again. Yeah.
Reroll. Okay. Aha, there we go.
Boxcars,
There we go.
very good. 2 light, 2 light. I mean, it's only still just 1/6, but you know, it's impressive
yeah.
to look at. Full success. They say, "Oh yes. Oh yes, we have considered the matter. We have considered the matter, sister, and we know exactly what must be done. The one you call Nil is indeed a heretic, a pretender, potentially a vile interloper. But it is just such creatures that the mother of millions will wish to have brought before her, and that will be our way in. He will be our bait, our ruse. If this was a world where the Trojan horse was a thing, they would say that. The equivalent of the Trojan horse. But yeah, essentially what they intend to do is they're also kind of intimating that like the sickness of the hive is not so much a physical illness, it's this new warlike footing that the mother of millions is on. And while they're kind of telling you their plan, in the middle of that conversation, one of them says, "How do you feel, sister, about the fact that we have to spill your blood upon the wax in order to ease this fever that has overcome the hive? Indeed, your blood is the balm which will heal all. It is an incredible sacrifice. It is commendable."
Indeed.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know if
all
it's
I
the first
want
Alina's
is-
heard of this or not, but
Yeah, it is, but she's just like, don't show them you're panicking. So she's just like, she'll smile and she says, "Indeed. But all I want is but a simple favor. A sacrifice must always be given for the greater good. I know that better than most. It will not be in vain."
And they all sort of like nod approvingly. Nil, what are you doing as you watch Alina and the beekeepers conspire over there out of earshot?
I think when I think if like this was a show, I think as soon as Alina says that, there'd be the clopping of hooves, and they'd turn, and you'd see Nil on the horse, on this undead horse with this halo of bees, sort of like Caligula on this senator horse, looking down on all of them and saying, "Well, the day is here. The night is not far ahead. We should keep going. Yes."
They're ready to go. They have the two people they need.
Yeah.
So-
Alina will also go. I think there's a moment where she looks around for Valen, and then I think she has a moment where she realizes that while he's protecting her now, it's the same kind of protection as these aviarists. I think that's sort of settling on her now, and she's like, "All right, it's just me. I'm gonna
It's
have to
all
do this
you,
myself."
yeah.
And she will go. The less variables, the better for her.
So it sounds like Valen and Ifori, whenever they return, will return to an empty camp. Indeed, Ifori, your scene with the soldier bees wraps up with you being released from the wax and one of them ejecting its stinger so that it falls into your hand. And at the end of it, there is a pulsing globule of the venom. You can intuit what they intend for you to do with the stinger and the venom, Ifori. Do you head back to camp, Ifori?
Before that, can I also ask that they give me the torn bag,
Give you the what back?
the little pouch of honey that was torn?
Oh, the actual torn sack. Yeah, they'll give that back to you too. Yeah.
And yeah, she does head back to camp with both those things. Stinger concealed, pouch not.
Valen, how does your scene wrap up with this poor man who is a nursery for bees?
I think Valen looks at him and says, "I've never been one to steal from the living," and then slits his throat. And then I think he's going to I think he's going to cut this little hive out of his chest with the little grubs and all, and wrap it in his cloak and carry it back to the camp.
That will kill him. He gives up a last shudder. Almost grateful, I think. And you have this rib cage hive wrapped in cloth. And I think you meet Ifori on the trail before you get back to camp. Let's just have the scene with the two of you there.
Oh, hello. I was looking for you.
And you have found me. What do you have there?
Oh, this is nothing. Bzz, bzz, bzz.
And you left Alina alone at camp?
I'm sorry, who?
Your object of admiration?
Oh, him. Yes. Well, he can take care of himself. He's quite mighty, as you may have noticed.
Of course he is.
I'm glad you're well. Shall we head back and find the others?
Yes, I have some words to exchange with Nell.
Oh, do tell.
And she just holds up this cut sack.
Treachery.
Mm.
That that is his color. Please, after you.
The two of you.
I don't think she walks ahead. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you if you are going back to camp, you arrive at the camp. The rest of the group is gone, but there's one beekeeper there. The one who you'll recall from last time Ifori, who wanted you to kill him. He's there and he says, Oh, I'm so happy I get to see you again. After you abandoned me the other day, I decided to shape up, to steel myself. And I had a revelation.
I see you've found new direction.
Oh,
Can't say I
yes.
expected it of you.
Yes, indeed. We have to go to the Sixth Form Heart. You're headed that way, aren't you?
Evidently.
What happened to the rest of your companions, and indeed my former companions?
I was hoping you could tell us.
I have no idea. But, well, the morning already grows long. And he kind of marches deeper into the woods. What do the two of you do?
Are there any signs of where these people could have gone?
Yeah, you can see they'll have left enough tracks between 5 people and a horse. There will be enough to follow. And they are probably following whatever's left of the moose prints. So.
And just to be clear, this is the same apiarist that stabbed me earlier.
The one that
right?
stabbed you, yes.
Okay.
He seems to have gotten over his what it's all in the past.
Yeah, it's all water under the bridge. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, he was doing the stabbing after all. And so he's ready to go. And he even holds up, he's like, I've got the trail, I've got the patrol map as well.
Valen will just look at Ifori and shrug.
I think quieter, she murmurs to Valen. Is that is the same one that stabbed you earlier, isn't it?
Oh yes, we should watch him for treachery.
Or maybe
Um,
we should take care of him beforehand.
I'm sure that
He's tougher than he looks.
you will all be aware of this buzzing coming from Valen's cloak as well. I just want to throw that out there.
Then we'll watch him, and at first sign of treachery, we can cut him loose, as it were.
Alina and Nil and company. You are reaching deeper into the woods. This is the true heart of the Humming Woods. But it is definitely different from what you had been in before. This is not the pleasant, pastoral, almost bucolic bee scenario from the day before. This is something entirely different. This is bees infected with a sort of strange bee, like, for lack of a better word, like bee nationalism, bee, like bee, chauvinism, right? Like when they've gotten their hands on a human, they have made that human an example for anybody else who might try to enter the woods. As I paint the scene, everyone please describe a human that was made an example of by this new bee regime.
Yeah, I think we see almost as a chilling callback to what could have happened to Ifori. We see a human that is just completely covered with wax. They are like in this kind of pose where they, like covering or trying to hide a little bit, obviously being attacked. And we can see, even though they are completely still, just hidden like that, we see the eyes just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Still alive, but completely trapped and probably slowly suffocating.
I think one of them is suspended from branches, and they're still stuck to the tree trunk, but they're not engulfed in wax, but they have these holes and lacerations all over them, and the blood that's dripping from them is going down into the smaller hive that's lower on the tree. And you can see that the honey that's being made there is mixing with the blood.
I think we see like a tree with nodules of amber sort of attached to it, and in each nodule of amber is some bit of a human limb, where it looks like someone was trapped there and had to chew or cut themselves free in order to escape.
See, actually, probably about a cluster of 3 people grouped together, bound by this kind of wax and honey from the waist down. It's kind of created a sort of, I guess, pillar of sorts for them to sit to rest in. But we don't see heads. We see hives. Their skulls or their heads have been made into hives. We see little grubs swarming and where eyes should be, and bees keep coming down to tend to them.
Everyone will see these scenes at different times and different ways, but everyone will see them. And I would like for everyone to roll Ruin. Alina's the only one who got a high enough result to go up with a 6. Everyone else got 3s or lower. Alina, how's this affecting you to see this horror?
I think she sees all of this, and we see almost like these flashes of, we see this person being attacked, and we see a flash to a village on fire. Somebody's being dragged in that same pose. We see her looking at these limbs, and we see somebody scream in that village as the blood just gushes out, holding them, holding the stump of their arm that's left. We see the people huddled together, and we see a flashback to a mother like gathering her children and rushing them inside as these almost like dark fairy tale shadowy figures, almost distorted by the memory of this, like they're riding past, their swords out, and this village is just in panic, and everything she sees here is just reminding her of the home that she had to leave to be here. And I think this forest has scared her, but that death feels more personal and feels closer.
Nil. The bees have no open hostility to you. Not so for the 3 beekeepers, who barely get to even try to make their case as you're moving through the woods before they are beset. One of them is killed instantly when a stinger is jammed up from beneath the soft tissue under his chin and straight up into his skull. Another is torn limb from limb with bee mandibles. They carry his limbs into the sky, spraying a shower of blood over the rest of you. The third is stung so many times, his face swells up enough to push the beekeeper mask off of his face, and you just see this horrible, swollen, purple agony. And he dies. Alina, Nil seems to be like the key to getting through here safely. What do you do?
Yeah, I think I will go to him and just kind of like stay not within stabbing range, like just outside of stabbing range, just to be sure. And I think I will say, this forest seems to know that we are not its enemies. You are the home of these bees, and I do not wish to harm them. I think you and we are on the same side. All I want is but a simple favor. I do not wish to harm, I do not wish to take.
You
I
don't wish
think
to
you and I
harm.
must see this true.
You don't wish to harm them. And I think what he's saying this, that some of the blood had sprayed on him, and it's now kind of being sopped up by the bees who are living in him. And so it's like being sucked into his body. And he wipes off some of the blood and puts it around his lips, almost as like to rouge them. And he looks down at Alina and says, "You do not wish to harm them. Do you wish to harm me?"
Not at all. I wish only to harm those who have harmed me and my family. And even then, I truly wish there was another way.
The path ahead is a divine one. Follow me. I will make sure that we get there safely. You'll get what you want, and I will get what I want. There need not be any more bloodshed.
Not at all. Thank you. And I do think that I will like reach out to shake your hand. And when I do, I will swap the sacks. So you will have the one that's useless, and I will have a useful one with possibly your stuff in it that could help me. for a
Good.
reduction roll, possibly.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, you can make the reduction roll. See if you get noticed.
Probably. It would be very funny, to be honest, if I get noticed.
It's a
No,
4,
I
so
do
you do not. Very good. And you proceed to the sixth form heart. Ifori and Valen, you do not have the benefit of strange proto-saints on your side, but you do have the fourth beekeeper and his map of the patrols. You can immediately detect the hostility of these bees. You have to avoid the patrols. You have to find a safe way through this part of the woods to reach the sixth form heart. I'll let someone be a principal die roller. Another person can do a help. And having the map gives you an extra light die. So whoever has the most relevant skills, I think, can probably take the lead on it.
I've got deception, which is the closest I got. I think I have to that.
I mean, I had a surprise. I don't know if that
Surprise and
traps.
traps, kind of. If like the map notes like choke points and things like that, I could definitely see something along those lines. I think probably either of you can. I don't know if either of you are getting the first light die, but either of you probably could make the case for being the navigator. You'll get the light die from the map at least.
Do I notice any of the bees treating me any differently as I'm carrying this thing?
Well, so that's the thing, right? Like you're already like kind of enemy number one because of these bees particular political views, but like but then you also have this like nursery chamber in your cloak as well. So I don't know how that affects things. Maybe it makes it worse, or I don't know, or maybe you can use it as a hostage or something. I'm not sure, but I'm open to ideas.
Yeah, I was thinking that like along this path that we're following or whatever, I think that one of the things that Valen would be doing is trying to observe and see how his possession of this this nursery affects the bees. And I think that he would be doing experiments along the way, like with his proximity to Ifori and things like that, right? Like if I get far away, do they treat Ifori with more hostility? If I'm far enough away, do they attack her? Like that kind of thing.
I think between your skills in vermin and death, even in a way, I'll let you have that second light die on the roll, the way you described that. And then a devil's bargain as well, if somebody wants to offer one. I'll make my offer. The fourth beekeeper gets killed in the push to reach the heart.
I think no matter what, you will realize that while this nursery makes the bees more like agitated or aggressive, it is also paramount to binding the morning night to this forest.
I'm into that one, and I also want to see Jason kill off the other beekeeper in some terrible way later. So before I think we're in this together, are you cool with that decision?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So what are we at dice wise now?
You're at 3 light, and I'm going to make you do a dark as well.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah. And then you can take help from Ifori if you end up needing it. So
okay, we can do that after the roll, correct?
Yeah, you can do it after you see the results.
Okay, so as long as this isn't a dark 6, which it's not.
6 light. Hey, there you go. 1, 6, 4, and then a 1 dark. That's a great roll. You will be able to safely navigate past this very, very hostile part of the Humming Woods to reach the sixth form heart. I would like for both of you just to give me a little bit of the scene. Ifori, you can kick it off.
I think if Fori's sticking very close to the fourth beekeeper, ostensibly to observe the map, but also she's looking for an opening to sting him. And I think that's about what she's doing. Not super paying attention to what Valen's doing. If he follows, he follows.
I think Valen's doing a lot of what I described earlier, just sort of like being very scientific about experimenting with, like how this treasure that he has found affects the bees, and how he might use that to his advantage at some point. Yeah.
Both groups are reaching the sixth form heart roughly at the same time because you went slightly different directions with the map. And as you are getting close to the sixth form heart, the light of the sun actually dims briefly as a great titanic swarm of bees passes overhead. And so passes ring 4 as well. We'll take a 5-minute break and come back and finish. Ring 5. The hive is so close. The humming is a constant tickle in the ears, a thrumming in the chest, as if the woods themselves are trying to take flight. Have you been evading the patrols? Or have the patrols been herding you closer? It's a question worth pondering. You come upon several deer who wandered too close to the hive and were stung to death for their trespass. The carcasses are mostly intact. The fourth beekeeper, he says, Oh, this is a gift from the woods. The bees, they don't see like you and I see. They smell. Perhaps if we were to bathe ourselves in offal and viscera, we would be able to cover up our human scent long enough to reach the heart of the hive. And everybody's together at this point.
I think Nil has a different approach, as he's been on top of the horse, which is, I assume, is also being kind of stung by these smaller bees constantly, but it's not a phase because it's, reanimated.
Zombie horse, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I think when he hears that the whole like covering in viscera, I think he is going to sort of internally signal for the bees to begin to sting him internally, and in doing so is going to cast a ritual on himself to create a shell.
You're casting a ritual on yourself.
Yeah, shell.
Your skin grows a tough outer layer, which acts as armor. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
You can just do it. I like it as just keep it in the fiction for now. What does it look like?
So the little holes all over his body start to ooze out with this red tinted amber, and it like begins to spread all over his skin. And we don't see it on top of the uniform, but beneath all of his flesh has this kind of like amber crystalline sheen to it. Just adding to the magnificence.
I assume this is visible to everyone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone, please roll Ruin. Ifori got a 5, Valen got a 5, and Alina got a 6. This was a disastrous
It's only
move.
sixes for me.
So Euphoria, you're going up. Alina, you're going up. Phelan, you're actually we're at 5, correct? So you're fine, but the rest of you are at 5. How are you feeling seeing Nil now covered in this sort of blood amber armor?
I'm starting to think that
That's-
whatever Nil might say, that he doesn't want any more bloodshed and that he has no quarry with me, I feel like all his actions have not really lined up with that. And he is still my enemy, and now he is an enemy in formidable armor who also has a halo of the beads of this fairy forest. So that's not particularly good for me.
The beekeeper says, well, suddenly my idea, well, doesn't seem so great. This is kind of a tough act to follow. Nevertheless, he's taking his knife and splitting open one of the deer.
I think what Alina will do is sort of build on the idea that Phelan planted with the flowers and like making herself attractive to the bees, because she still wants to negotiate. So she doesn't want to go in as an enemy, as a repellent. She wants to go in as something so good that they just might listen to her. And I think she starts like taking plans and weaving them around her. And I think if we can say this for a reduction roll, I think I in the first session at the very beginning, I gave Nil and Valen an herb to eat to regulate their heart. And I think while I do these plans, I will once again like do a little smoke. And I think this smoke is kind of like the herb itself that they ate is perfectly benign, except it causes an allergic reaction to the smoke of one other particular plant. And that's one of the plants that I am now lighting on fire.
I like that. Go ahead and roll reduction.
Yes.
You do it, and your betrayal goes unnoticed. The others don't know what you've done, but Nil, or whoever took the healing plant, I don't even remember who it was. How do you react to it? How are you reacting to it?
I think as he's on this horse, and there's this like splendor, the sun's kind of reflecting off his new amber sheen. As soon as the smoke starts to waft in his direction, maybe even the wind sort of carries it towards him. It breaks his like momentary sort of messiah complex, and he starts to kind of feel mortal again as he starts to kind of feel his heart rate increase rapidly, and he kind of buckles on the horse a bit, looking out as if he's about to fall over, but then he braces himself and he looks around, confused. Why is this happening to him? This isn't right. He's supposed to be carried here. This is his destiny. Why is he feeling this human thing right now?
I think that Valen doesn't even really notice at the moment, but then looks to Ifori to say something, and like his voice doesn't come out of his throat because it's suddenly swollen, and he has like patches of red like angry skin on his face that he starts to scratch, and they bleed a little bit, and his eyes are feeling swollen and watery, and when he looks over to Alina and sees the Morning Knight wreathed in this smoke, the Morning Knight at this point looks fully dead.
Euphoria and Valen, well, Nil has his blood amber armor. Alina is dressing herself in flowers of the forest. The beekeeper is currently spreading guts and blood all over his body, and it stinks terribly. What are the two of you going to do to give yourself some camouflage, if anything? Maybe you just go in like you are. I don't know.
have an absolutely terrible idea. So this whole time I've had this stinger and I've been thinking that, oh, maybe I'm supposed to stab someone else with it. But I keep getting, every time I think to do it, the person I'm trying to do it to ends up either being not there or being instrumental. Maybe the person I was supposed to sting with it was myself, just away from there. And I think in an effort to avert attention, because, well, these are the bees. If they wanted this, then surely doing it will help. I think she stings herself with the transformative stinger thing.
I think this is a ruin roll. I don't know like what else it would be. I don't know if reduction really comes into play because you're not betraying anyone. Nobody knows about this.
That is a 2.
The venom is painful at first, but then the pain transforms into almost a blissful acceptance. And you hear coming from the direction of presumably where the hive is, "I've been waiting for you." Valen, what do you do? Are you going to join the guts bloodbath or
Oh
do something
no.
else?
Valen has this entire time been watching and learning, as is his way, and he has learned so much from Nil. He is going to reach into his cloth wrapped nursery, and he is going to start removing handfuls of comb and honey and grubs, and he is going to start inserting them into his ears and his nose and his mouth, and he is going to make himself a brood, right? In hopes that he will be ignored.
Do you do this in full view of everyone?
Yes. Yeah.
Everyone but Nil, roll ruin, please, including you, Valen.
There's my 6 dark.
Valen's got a 6 dark. Alina's got a 6 dark. How'd you do, Ifori? A 2
Another
again.
2.
Ifori keeping it together. So we are at full on 5s, except for Nil. 5 ruins. Or did somebody get a 6?
Valen is at 6.
Oh, you went to 6.
I did.
Oh. I think for the moment, the last we're going to see of you is you shoving honeycomb and meat and grubs into the various orifices of your body. The beekeeper just steps away slowly and mutters to the others, "I think we should proceed. I think he has lost."
Neil looks back at him very smugly.
Alina, how are you feeling right now?
I think there is a, not necessarily sadness, but almost like a respect for a fallen comrade, like that kind of quiet. And I think she will take the crown that Valen gave her, take it off and place it on Valen's head as she too gets ready to leave.
We'll catch up with you in epilogue, Valen. Everyone else, you're at the 6th form heart, the hive fortress of the Humming Woods. What it actually is a bunch of tall, very tall trees and wax comb structures have engulfed the peaks of the trees, and they connect up, forming an immense irregular dome. And you can hear that loud buzzing coming from inside the dome, and indeed from all the bees outside of the dome as well. It's so loud you can't even hear yourselves speak anymore. All you hear is the buzzing. There's no apparent way to get in, except there is a deep gouge left presumably by the moose in the wall of the dome. It is the only way in. It yawns just wide enough for one treasure hunter to walk in at a time. The bees are already starting to mend it. And so you will have to make your move quickly. Who's going in first, if at all?
Actually, before that, I have an idea for a reduction roll I'd like to pull.
Okay.
Basically, I want to return the torn bag to Nil. Like, oh, by the way, I think you dropped this earlier. I've been meaning to give it back to you. And as she gives it to him and like brushes his hand, cast a scramble.
What does that do?
It's touch a creature to make them forget their known rituals until the next sunrise.
Oh, very good. Very good. I like it. Let's see how the reduction goes. You got a 2, which means the betrayal will not be noticed. Jack, I'll leave it to you, in or out of character. How do you want to? Do you want to try to resist the scramble, or do you just accept that your rituals are gone for the time being?
I
Like
think
you don't know where it's coming from necessarily, but you can tell that
something
something
off.
is affecting you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'll take it more as a sign of you have to give yourself completely if you want to enter. And so before he raises his hand and secretly casts this ritual, I think the hardened crystal starts to kind of dissolve again and go back into his pores and into those holes. And there's a moment where he's wondering why, and he's confused, but then he hears the humming and he closes his eyes and he realizes that this is a sign. This is he needs to be vulnerable here. He needs to be open, and he can't receive their gifts if he is closed off to them. And so I think he takes the bag and with eyes closed starts to get up, starts to dismount the horse and just says, "Thank you, Afori." And he'll just start to walk in.
I also had an idea for a reduction roll. I think as this is happening, Alina is going in first.
Mhm.
And I kind of like that everyone is doing their rituals. So I'll do one of mine too.
Mhm.
I think as I go, I will drop just like some cloth, just something from my bag. I drop it like right at the entrance.
Mhm.
And then as I go in, I will cast, what's it called?
Glamour
No, I was
or
thinking
ashes?
ashes.
Oh,
Yes, and I'm like burn something irreplaceable to turn a creature or object to dust. No, wait, then I would have like done it like at the sides. I think she's kind of like trying to make that it closes.
oh, to close it
or
up.
like gets
Oh,
like dusty or like terrible enough that they can't really enter is sort of the intent.
I like it.
And I
think,
think
yeah.
the irreplaceable thing that I'll burn, I kind of just want to say my eye. Like just she has to, and I think she's just, it's irreplaceable. You can't put it back.
You'll also be smelling your way through the hive, apparently.
Like I have one eye left.
Yeah,
but
yeah, fair.
yeah.
Yeah. So that horrific situation is going on. Go ahead and make your reduction roll. See if the others can tell you've done this. They cannot. The others just arrive to find, by the time you get your little transaction sorted, you find that the gouge is already kind of melting closed. It's already sealing up, and there's no sign of Alina anywhere. The two of you are just outside the hive. What do you do?
Nil immediately starts to panic. Not because Alina is gone, but because the hive is closing, and where he was once sort of serene and accepting of what was happening, I think now he's kind of snapped back into this more primal, not quite survival mode, but definitely sort of a determination. And I think with the dagger that he used to cut open the bag, for his bag, he'll start to just very frantically, desperately start to chip at the exterior, trying to keep it open.
Yeah. If are you going to help with that?
You said it's melding closes and there's still some space left, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it's not a complete seamed up seam yet. Yeah.
Do we still have the horse?
Sure. You also have
One
the
second.
fourth beekeeper too.
Oh, right, him. I
Who
forgot
reeks
about
of guts.
Huh. Okay, so I think she's going to kind of push the fourth beekeeper into the hole to keep it open. Or try to.
That's interesting. I like this as a risk roll to see if you can regain entrance into the hive. Nil, I'll let you roll since you kind of started with the knife and then get help from Ifori and the beekeeper as needed. I think what could go wrong here is that you just attract attention of guard bees while you're trying to do this. And Jazzy, you can give the devil's bargain.
I think no matter what, because you're damaging the hive, the mother of millions will no longer love you. Or see it as a betrayal.
Is this bargain for me or for you?
This is for you. You're the
Oh,
principal.
yeah, no, I
roller.
can't deal with that. No. No, I can't do that now. Yeah, no bargain. I'm just
we
rolling
didn't
straight.
establish. I skipped the first light die. So taking a look at your skills, Valen, or not Valen, Nil. I don't know if you have a relevant skill here.
Yeah,
either.
I don't think so either.
I think this is just a dark die. Just
Let's party.
Let's just roll ahead and see how it goes. So 4, you succeed. The complication is the beekeeper is going to be killed very shortly after entering into the gap. Are you okay with that?
Oh yeah, totally.
Euphoria, if you want to do a help die, you can maybe try to get it up to a 6 if Jack's okay with the help.
Yeah, if you want to.
I see the beekeeper dying as a win here.
Yeah, I kind of do too.
Yeah.
Very good. I think the way you've described it is adequate. You begin carving at the gap to keep it open, and Ifori like shoving the beekeeper, using him as a wedge to keep it open so that Nil can split it apart, and you have access to the passage again. Alina, you've got a head start.
Yeah. I think she's just running for it to try and make her deal.
So running is not exactly how it goes.
Yeah.
It is
wiggling fast.
It is a very, very tight passage.
Mhm.
The walls yield, but they are, because it's soft wax, but you are essentially pushing through wax, right?
Mm.
You're getting wax under your fingernails. You can feel it pressing up against your burnt eye socket, and occasionally you have to kind of unstick it. It is a corridor, but it's a tight corridor.
Mhm. I think as I go through, I will still try to make their passage after me as horrific and difficult as possible.
By doing what?
I think I still maybe have like plans that I've been picking along the way, just picking. I'm dropping them. I'm making like more and more smoke. And then as I go, I will like keep, like as I push through, I push it past close, almost like a giant, like being swallowed, that motion. I just do it to myself. I move and I push it close. I move and I push it close. And I put more and more smoke in it. Smoking them out as you do with bees.
Make another reduction roll. Actually, this is actually probably pushing into contest roll, to be honest, because it's like who can reach the heart, like first, essentially. Yeah, this is kind of what you're up against, Nil and Ifori. Alina is pretty clearly like trying to prevent you all from following in. I think if Nil and Ifori want to push forward together, only one of you needs to do the contest roll. But if you're going to ultimately try to compete against, to win yourself, to be the only person who reaches the heart first, you can certainly all roll contest roll to see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm rolling separately.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Let's talk about the contest roll. This is how let's hover over the rules there. When treasure hunters act against each other, compete, or want to inflict harm on each other, first agree what's at stake. Then each competing player gathers some dice. You get one light die if your occupation or background gives you an advantage. Alina, I think yours is fairly obvious, so you have your light die. Nil, do you have?
I was thinking because I have the bees still in me, the vermin.
Oh, I'll take
would
that.
try to help guide me through.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, yeah, and I think that kind of just goes into your general sort of like saintly aspect right now too. Ifori, do you have relevant skill?
It's pushing it, but does attraction work in reverse to attract me to the heart?
What is your occupation that gives you that? A vessel?
Vessel.
Oh, I'll kind of take it, yeah, because it's kind of weird and symbolic in a way. Yeah, I'm into it. You all have a light die. Continuing on with the rules here, you get another light die for each mark of ruin that you currently have. So Ifori is getting 4, Alina's getting 4, and Nil is getting 4. So you're all up to 5 light dice at this point. And then you take a dark die if the contest is inherently dangerous. It is, for reasons I'll describe whenever we get ready to describe things. So you're up to 5 light, 1 dark, and then you can add as many additional dark dice as you wish. The goal here is to get 6s. Any of your dark dice that end up a 1, your ruin goes up by 1. So you could very quickly be knocked out. So you're starting at 5-1, but you can do as many extra as you wish. Whenever you've got your amount typed into the contest roll, let me know.
I'm in.
I'm in too.
I'm good to go too.
Let's roll them up. All right. I'm going to read this out for folks watching the video. So Ifori risked 1 extra dark die and got 1 6 in total, and no 1s on the dark dice. Nil risked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 extra dark dice, got 2 6s and 2 1s. So Nil is at 6 ruin, but does win the contest. Or no, not necessarily. Let's check out Alina. Alina risked 5 additional dark dice, got 1 ruin increase, but also 2 6s. So we now have to go to 5s because the 6s are tied. Nil has 2 5s, and Alina only has 1 5. Nil is reaching the heart first, but Nil is also at 6 ruins, so this is the end for Nil. I'm going to give you the first part of this, and then you all can describe what it looks like when it's over. You eventually all find yourselves in complete darkness. The light at a certain point does not penetrate the wax anymore. And so it's just darkness and smoke and buzzing. The 4th beekeeper screams in the darkness at one point, and you will never see him again. The rest of you are making your way, pressing forward. Nil, you can tell that Alina's trying to stop you, and even Afori is clearly trying to one-up you here. How do you win the contest? How do you give them the how do you reach there first? You're muted, Jack.
The way that this chamber is set up, the walls are thick, but there's many different passages that are very slim that you have to squeeze yourself through. And I think that at one point, Nil, listening to the humming and coordinating that with the humming that's coming from within, he's using that to sort of be his beacon, his guide, and he breaks off from the main path and starts to squish and squeeze his way through. He's getting stung all the way. His clothing is getting snagged. He feels the bees getting agitated because of this pressure that he's putting upon them. And as he's forcing himself closer to the center, to the heart, there's certainly a struggle. I think he's just sort of struggling to get through this.
You reach the heart first. You've been struggling for probably 10 minutes of smoke-choked darkness when you step into a chamber that has just a very faint light. The light comes from a pool, a small basin shaped from the wax. And inside this basin, there is a glowing liquid. It has a thick, viscous quality. And every now and then, there's an occasional drop from somewhere up above that adds to the basin. This is almost certainly the royal jelly, one of the most fabulous treasures in Caldor, one that no one has ever gotten so close to. And presumably the Mother of Millions is somewhere up above in the darkness. Indeed, she speaks. Why have you come here?
On his knees and on his hands and knees, he looks up to the sound and he goes, I thought I came here to find you, to bring you, to take you with me to find something among the human world. But I know now that it's not why I'm here. I'm no god, I'm a servant. I humble myself before you. I know that you seek more. I know that you're restless. I know that you need others like myself to get you to where you need to be. And I want to be the first. I want to be someone that you can rely on, that you can take with you.
And with that, We will see you in epilogue, Nil. Alina would arrive next, according to our die results. Alina, what's your ruin at currently?
5. So we can do one more.
Indeed. You arrive. Nil's nowhere in sight. You do see the basin with the royal jelly glowing. It's the only source of light. It's very dim. And you can sense the presence of the Mother of Millions above in the darkness. And she says, "Interloper, draped in flowers, suffuse with nectar, why have you come here?"
I have come to make a deal. I do not wish to harm you and I do not wish to take. But there are people who rely on me and they need your power. There is a tyrant who must be destroyed, and you have the power to do so. You may have our flowers and our land, my heart or my soul if you so wish, but the tyrant must be destroyed.
I'm going to say that you look up into the faint light, into the darkness, to glimpse the Mother of Millions, and you do glimpse the Mother of Millions. I'm not going to describe it to you yet, but I do want you to roll ruin.
A 4.
We shall see you in epilogue. Euphoria, you arrive last. Neither Alina nor Nil is visible. You see the same scene, the royal jelly. And the same question is put to you, except it's different. She says, "Why are you worthy of taking my place?"
I know what it means to lead, and I know how to do it better. Your kingdom has fallen to ruin and insurrection.
She says, "Very well. Gaze upon me and understand your fate." Do you?
I think she does.
Suspended above the basin is a bloated, distended body. A person. Their tattoos stretched beyond recognition because of the extended skin. Their flesh is so distended that it's thin, it's transparent. This is not the Mother of Millions. The Mother of Millions is this fist-sized bee crawling around in this balloon-like shell. The nervous system of the body has been finely plucked and strung and attached to the wax dome so that the Mother of Millions can see and hear and feel everything that goes on in her kingdom and possibly beyond. Make a ruin roll. Not that it can push you over, but I'm curious to see how you end up.
That's a 3.
And we'll go to epilogues. Epilogues are pretty straightforward. Try not to implicate any other character. But just tell us what the future holds for you. Those of you who are lost to the Humming Woods, your epilogue should incorporate this. Those of you who are not lost to the Humming Woods, you have a little bit more flexibility in how you interpret your ending. We can take a quick break if you need to think about it, or we can go right now if you're ready.
I think I have something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we see a shot of Alina. The sun is rising behind her. We see almost like the silhouette, very like this hero returns to the village pose, right? The sun is rising behind her. And as it rises up, we see her return to this village, her burned eye socket, and out of it, a bee crawls. And she stumbles forward and she screams, not sound, but bees, endless, endless bees just pouring from her mouth like a plague, like a swarm. And they go over the village and they eat and they sting and they destroy all of Hafir's men, all the soldiers, all of Hafir until there is nothing in the palace. But then as the people come out of their houses and they start to praise and cheer and cry and dance in the street, Alina just keeps walking and walking and walking, because it is Alina, but it is not. It is a Messiah forever crying and screaming bees at those who need punishment.
Fantastic, thank you. Who wants to go next?
We see it's not the Humming Woods, but we see Nil, and he's as he was leading up to the heart. He's on horse. Bees are crowning him in a halo, but his eyes are completely glazed over in this amber color. It's almost as if his eyes have been replaced by coagulated honey or something. And then we see others behind him, humans, all with the same sort of glazed look in their eyes, all of them having this humming sound beneath their clothing. And they all shamble in unison with him as he begins to ride ahead. And we see off in the horizon the gates of Ambret.
Good, thank you.
I think that for years and decades after the story ends, there's a story that is told across the land, and it has changed over time as stories do. But it is always about a person who went to the sixth form heart for love and gave every bit of himself to the bees there in service to his beloved. And it is a story that is told by knights in their cups as they challenge each other to go into the forest and find this saint of unrequited love, of lost love. But none ever do. No one comes looking for Valen. But we do see him at some point, strung up on a tree near where the sixth form heart is or was. And his chest is a comb, a honeycomb, a nursery for bees. and his heart still is laid bare for all to see.
Thank you.
I think we see, no idea how long passes in between, but we see these travelers embarking on an expedition into the woods. And part of the way in, even before they encounter the true buzzing, it's Ifori that greets them. And she is covered in tattoos, but instead of being made of ink, they're made of these little puncture wounds. And she greets them and offers them what they've come for, if only they swear themselves to the true power. And she leaves it relatively ambiguous what that is, because on her cloak she wears the symbol of Darwan, but clearly she is covered by puncture wounds. And if they guess wrong and swear themselves wrong, she kills them.
A warm and pleasant hum. Let's go ahead and debrief stars and wishes for the entire for today, as well as both weeks if you wish. Stars are things you enjoyed. Wishes are things that you hope to see. Actually, that can't be true. Wishes are things, I don't know what wishes are in this context. I never know what to say here. Wishes are maybe like, what if this had happened in the story instead? That might be fun to talk about. I will start though. I really liked this story quite a lot. It was very, I liked how competitive it got and how antagonistic it got in certain places. I enjoyed there was a really interesting TikTok today of Ring 3 was almost pleasant. Like it was almost like nice, and then Ring 4 was like really horrifying. Like it was like a big, like it was an interesting switch, and so I enjoyed that. I thought that was really, really great. I liked sort of the strange ambiguities in the story. I thought they were very they're really interesting, and they make me want to know more in some ways. I thought everyone did a great job doing reduction rolls. Everyone did a really good job playing with each other's like stories and drives and stuff, and kind of incorporating that into what they were doing. I thought that was all really, really well done. And the epilogues were all really terrific across the board. So yeah, this was a great story. It was yeah, it was good. I was buzzing the whole time, in fact. And my wish is, so I'm going to be running the Trophy Dark companion to this, which takes place a number of, I think it's months or years after the events of A Warm and Pleasant Hum. So I'm gonna try to do my best to like incorporate details of this into that, right? Like to see the fallout of it, or to see kind of how it plays out. So yeah.
Yeah, I think just in general, I really loved the themes that sort of emerged. I really loved for this session, and I think we started building it in the last one, like this theme of divinity and fake messiahs and this worship and how far you're willing to go. That almost gave like this ominous eldritch divine context to everything. I thought that was really, really interesting. And I also loved how I think almost every character ended up as such a foil to each other. Like I think Alina and Nil was like fairly obvious from the start. And I think that especially in the epilogues, we kind of got to see like that once again, just like very clear. But even between Ifori and Valen, I think just everyone kind of had these foil moments to everyone else, which I thought felt really cinematic and really interesting. And I think that also just speaks to everybody's skill to kind of be able to pick that up, and then sort of all of us together being like, oh, this is an interesting story or a team to go forward. I thought that was really, really cool. For individual ones, for Nil, I really love just how detached Nil got in this session. And just like the further we got, how he sort of like started buying into his own hype. Like, yes, obviously I am the Messiah. Like, good for you all to notice. I really love that like the deeper we got, the deeper he got into that message as well. For Daniel, I just love the devotion of Valen and just everything that Valen did. I think Alina was like trying to portray herself as this selfless, loving hero type, but I think in a strange way, Valen actually was that person. You know, a little obsessive, a little unhealthy, but still everything he did, he actually kind of did for someone else, which I thought was very interesting to see. And for Ifori, I just loved that Ifori kept being like very mysterious throughout it all. Like you could never pinpoint, like even up until the very end, I couldn't really pinpoint what she was going to do or how she would react, or like, you know, there was always this sense of like you're playing an even grander game because you're trying to resurrect gods, and we're just, you know, have relatively comparably like small goals compared to bringing a god back or a cult back. And I thought you just really played also the vulnerable moments of that. Underneath all that coldness, what she really wanted was to feel like she belonged somewhere, and just like have that safety, have that warmth that she felt there. That I thought that was incredibly done and just added a very humanizing touch to a very mysterious and dark character. And for Jason, I really love the descriptions again, especially like at the end with just getting there and like how it really just felt claustrophobic and dramatic, and just like the mother, even though we met her for like 3 seconds, you know, it just felt like such a huge moment. And I think that was really, really, really well done. Oh, and as for wishes, well, I hope to play with everyone here again. It was really fun. And I think, yeah, I guess the only thing that I could say that would have been interesting to see to go different if Nil had taken that bargain, and how it would have changed Nil at the very end to feel that betrayal. I think that could be a very interesting like alternate universe ending of this game.
I definitely considered it. But I'm glad it went the way that it did. Overall star, and also partially a wish. Like everyone here really brought it the entire time. Like everyone here really, I felt like even if people hadn't played this game before a lot, they all felt like very studied. It all felt very like everyone knows what they're doing. And so I never felt like a lack of confidence or anything like that. Everything felt very confident, very deliberate. So that was really good and reassuring to be a part of. Individual stars. Really liked being able to play with Alina. I think she was a really good foil to Nil, and I love that she kept playing the long game until the end. It showed a very kind of like conscious, smart decision making on your part, Jazzy, and it's just really interesting to watch. And I love the epilogue. This like screaming woman just roaming the landscape, spraying bees everywhere. I thought that was really fun. I love Gay Bee Saint, Valen. So into that. I love that epilogue. And despite the fact that he got ruined early, I think his impact was very, very much present throughout. And I really like the introduction of the nursery, taking that and utilizing it later. That was really interesting. And then for Ifori, yeah, just like mysterious is a very good way to put it. Like we know her goals, and like if I had a wish, like if I wanted to see like a sequel to this, I definitely want to see like how she would play out being a queen, because I thought like her taking that deal was really interesting, and her like seeing her bargaining with the bees, for her own life was really fun and interesting. And adjacent descriptions always are bangers. The build up to the center of the hive was really good. Like Jazzy said, very claustrophobic, and then it's like it's like a horror movie. You don't want to see the alien too much, otherwise it kind of loses its impact. And so like getting to see it at the end with just Euphoria felt very impactful. And then I love those stupid beekeepers. They're great. And I like that I got to keep a horse. It may not be conscious, but it's mine. And yeah, my other wish at kind of just repeating, everyone here was really good, and I would totally play this again with everybody. Like, it'd be great.
I've got a star for the horse. He was fantastic. I'm glad he was able to stick around the entire time. Jack Nil was amazing. I love your character work with him, and just like I just always felt like the decisions that you made were just very nil. Like it was just very nil in my head, and it was really, really, really fun to watch. Kavya, I think Ifori making the choice at the end to sting herself to get in was brilliant and fun. And I do love just sort of the quiet mastermind that you were playing the entire time. That was great. I was actually sweating a little bit because I thought when Valen and Nefori met in the woods alone that you were totally going to shank him. And I was here for it, but like I was just waiting, like there was tension that I felt there, on purpose or not. Jazzy, I loved Alina as a character. I love this whole sainthood thing. I love how you kept accumulating like followers and devotion the entire time. And that was just a brilliant thing that you leaned into and really helped make the story for me. And Jason, you're a wonderful storyteller. Like your descriptions are fantastic. Your ability to roll with things are fantastic. And I really, really enjoyed the skill with which you navigated sort of like the tonal differences that we were experiencing throughout the game, which was sort of like it felt very unique for me, at least in terms of Trophy Dark. Like I've watched a number of APs and I played a few games and everything like that, and it just felt like this story felt different than most of the ones that I've seen.
Stars all around for, in general, the character work, because it was insanely good. The Nil Alina drama gave me life and also provided a very nice thing for me to hide Ifori behind, which was great. Thank you. Star for Valen, because yes, the character work was excellent and what you did with Valen was amazing, but I also like seeing how Valen was reacting and being treated by Alina shed more light on Alina as a person, because yeah, she did portray herself as this messiah saintly figure, but she was also playing the long game. Nil, there were several points in the session where I was just like, God damn it, Nil, not again. And that's a star, because it was like excellent. Jassy, I loved your, well, the epilogue descriptions, but just your descriptions throughout, how you kept successfully tying back everything that Alina was seeing and being affected by to that village, to that home she left behind. It felt like an excellent expression of your drive, and it was really cool to watch. Jason, star for how many times those apiarists made me feel so done during the session. Like every decision they made was so terrible. It was amazing. Also star for, yeah, the descriptions today, they were horrifying. And also star for just letting me pitch the most bullshit ideas every single time. I appreciate it greatly. And yeah, I too would definitely play with everyone here again.
Kavya, I want to give you a star for the face that you made the last time Jason had that fourth apiarist say anything. You just covered your eyes and you just looked like you had this palpable wave of disgust. It was fantastic.
And a smaller star for you, Kavya, because I know you've been trying to pull it off since some of the first games I played with you, but you finally got to use Scramble.
That was a star. Thank you. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, star for being able to use Scramble as a reduction roll.
Fabulous. Well, if there are no more stars and wishes, that was loads of fun. Thank you all so much. I thought we told a really good story, and it was horrifying and tragic, and even like romantic and sweet in a bizarre way in some ways. And I had a great time. So let's go ahead and wave goodbye to anybody watching the video. Goodbye.